Alrighty guys, today we're here with an amazing Q&A. I have Sammy and Jacob both with me. Say what's up, guys.
What's up?
Yes, so we got the team here and we're going to go through your Q&A. So once again, the questions that you guys post on our various social media accounts, on our TikTok, on our Instagram, we're going to be answering those for you. So keep posting them because we're answering them. So we love having your questions and we really appreciate the feedback. So why don't we get into it? All right, so let's start with a few AP exam questions. As you guys know, AP exam scores coming out soon. Let's go. Sammy, what's the first question?
At SS Salma wants to know, I thought we couldn't get a 1 or 2 this year.
All right, great question. So it was, I guess, insinuated by Trevor Packer, who is the, I guess, leader of AP at College Board, that anyone who does college level work would be receiving a 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know if that's a departure from what they did in the past. I think it's kind of a misleading statement. So yeah, it was kind of thought that it would be very hard to get a 1 or a 2. But what we saw this week is when the AP score percentiles came out, it's actually pretty much the standard percentiles. You had, say for history tests, about a 40% chance of getting a 1 or a 2. So that shocked a lot of students. I did a TikTok video about that did quite well, and students were shocked. I mean, they were just appalled. Kind of how it's been, and wasn't, I think, any worse than years past. If anything, kind of a better percentile of students got 3s, 4s, and 5s. So it's I guess disappointing mostly because students thought that they would be getting a guaranteed 3, and that's just not the case. And that may have just been misleading on the part of the College Board.
So the next question is from at 2:37 a.m. Both my bio questions were the topic I was hoping I wouldn't get. How can they judge an entire year of learning on 2 topic questions?
So that student's saying that the questions were questions they hoped they would not get.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. I mean, that's just very unfortunate. You know, that's final exams. You know, usually you hope that they're comprehensive, that they test the large majority of material, but I guess based on the time that you had for the APs, only 45 minutes, that they could only ask so many questions. So I think it's just an unfortunate consequence of the style of test that they had this year. And yeah, I mean, for the students that didn't feel confident in those topics, that really is quite unfortunate. I mean, that's kind of the person that falls through the cracks when the test is only 45 minutes long. So I feel bad for that person. I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. There's not much you can do about it. It's like any other high stakes exam. You know, if you take any kind of licensing exam, you take the bar exam, you take any standardized test, there could be something that you just don't know, and if that is the make or break point, then it makes you or breaks you, and that's tests. So sorry to hear that. That's definitely unfortunate.
And Alyssa Nee wants to know, should we submit our AP scores to college?
Great question. I still think yet to be seen, Alyssa. We don't really know. I would say 99% chance it looks like they're going to be pretty submittable. Those percentages are working out very similarly to years past. I think that's what they wanted. They wanted it to be consistent with past APs. So if that is the case, which seems to be, then yeah, then you do probably want to submit them because colleges will give you credits. And if they're good, then they can boost your application. Obviously, if they're not, then that's unfortunate. But I think the College Board's goal was to have this be a very similar experience at the end of it in terms of the scores. So colleges will accept them and colleges will appreciate the scores. I think they are closer to achieving that now that the percentiles are out and they're very similar. So I would say, yeah, if they're good, you should submit them and you should accept the free credits. I mean, just get the free money. That's what it's all about.
Moving on, a lot of your followers want to know where you went to college and more about you.
Oh, okay. Wasn't expecting that one. So I went to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut. I went to Cardozo Law School in Manhattan. I was a licensed attorney. I'm still a licensed attorney for several years, and I practiced law, I practiced litigation, and I started doing all of this stuff when I was actually 19. So I worked for companies, I'm not going to name the names, but big companies, and then also some smaller boutiques in the city where they're charging, you know, some astronomical $500 an hour for the tutoring. And I slowly moved up the ranks of those and started my own company, and now I'm Nick the Tutor. So I wasn't Nick the Tutor like 6 months ago, so now I'm Nick the Tutor. I started Nick the Tutor in March, actually, right before the coronavirus. I mean, I've always been Nick the Tutor, but I started the idea of the concept of social media personality then.
Awesome. Moving on, at NJKKR YZAM wants to know, do colleges look at your social media like LinkedIn or Instagram?
Yeah, surely they do. I mean, you want to make sure everything's private. You obviously don't want to post anything off-putting on there. I actually did a video a few days ago that colleges have been finding, I guess, there have been reports of students saying, I guess maybe off-putting things about Black Lives Matter or something negative about George Floyd or whatever it may be. I don't know the specifics, but students were having their acceptances rescinded for, saying things that were, inappropriate. So I would definitely be careful what you say on the internet. I would try to keep politics out of it. Just keep it to, fun pics at the beach or hanging out with your friends or family or, food pictures of pasta or whatever people post. But yeah, like putting like hardcore opinions on there that could offend somebody is probably not good if you're applying to college. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a free country. You can put whatever you want, but just know that there's a risk that, a college could see it and not like it and then rescind your acceptance, which was done to several kids. So I would definitely be careful with social media profiles.
At Tatiana wants to know, in your opinion, would the applicant pool be larger and more competitive for the class of 21 due to the class of 20's fears of COVID and high parent unemployment rates?
I don't know if the parent unemployment rates have that much to do with it, but I think definitely that there may be a slightly different experience for the students in the next few years, because what we're hearing is a lot of kids are either taking a gap year or taking some time off, or maybe going to a local college and planning on transferring when things get better. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I think definitely things are changing. A lot of students that maybe got accepted to a top-notch school may not want to start off the process online, or any school for that matter, may just not want to start off online. So there might be some delay and then there'll be slightly less spots. But if you think about a school that already has like a 5% acceptance rate, if there's even a few spots taken up, that really kind of hurts. You know what I mean? Because there's so few spots to begin with. So I think that, yeah, it could affect admissions. I think we'll have to see what happens with enrollments this coming year in the fall. If students actually matriculate and go to college or they don't. Like, I think still people are making that decision. So once we have that decision, then we'll know the answer. But yeah, I think there will be an effect. What that effect will be, not exactly sure yet. Good question though.
At Karamjot Singh wants to know, how does family legacy impact your chances of being accepted to a college?
Well, another really good question. I think it does positively impact it. If you look at, Andy Bernard from The Office, he got into Cornell with a 1240, I think was the number, because his parents or his dad and his uncle all went there. So that's obviously a fictional example if anyone knows The Office, the show. But yeah, it does help. And there was an article that someone sent me. I think Jacob, you might have sent it to me, about Harvard. Did you send me that article? Someone sent me an article, and basically 43%, Jacob's signaling to me, 43% of white applicants were either like athletes or legacies or something else. So yeah, legacy helps a lot. It just does.
You can also get scholarships that way.
Yeah, legacy scholarships, yep.
This was just a general question. How should I pace myself while I'm studying for the ACT and SAT this summer?
That's a good question. I mean, I would obviously try to get as much done as you can in the summer, but I would set a schedule, certain days you're going to study. Like, okay, I'm going to do my SAT work on, Monday and Wednesday and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or just give some kind of day schedule and, probably time yourself on sections one day and then review them the next day. Something like that, where you have a set plan where you know what you're doing each day. You're not just going into it like, oh, I'm going to study now and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. That's not as efficient as having a plan of action. Okay, I'm going to do a practice test on Monday, and then I'm going to review it on Wednesday, and then I'm going to do some grammar and formula rule study on Friday, and then I'm going to repeat that process over and over again. Something like that. I mean, maybe not exactly that, depends on the person, but having some kind of set schedule and some kind of set plan would be a good idea. We actually have study plans for download on our website, so you can go onto the free resources page, and download study plans. So we have stuff like that.
At Mary Beth Bronze asks a very specific question. On the ACT, how do you know when to use commas when introducing someone? When/if do you use to around a name?
Okay, so I think what Mary Beth is probably referring to is in a positive phrase, which is when you're explaining a noun. So if I said Nick, a tutor, loves grammar, that would be in a positive, explaining something about Nick, which pertains to, I guess, why he loves grammar, but you still have the core sentence, which is Nick, subject, loves grammar. So I think what she's looking for is something like that. The problem is on the test, they play tricks with that and they'll switch the explanation around with the noun. So they'll say like President Abe Lincoln, and they'll put commas around Abe Lincoln and make it look like an appositive phrase, but it's not. It's just like a long noun. So you either have an appositive phrase or you have like a compound noun, like a long like noun phrase. And I think that's a source of great confusion on the test for a lot of students.
At Unicohen 018 wants to know, how do colleges feel about positive improvement through high school?
That's another good question. I mean, that's definitely something that's really helpful to a college application. If you had a slip up in your grades in 10th grade and you can show an improvement through 11th grade, then you've bounced back and you show that you're trending upwards towards college. That's always a good thing. You definitely don't want your grades sliding down into college, because then it looks like you're doing too much, or you're just maybe getting burnt out or something like that, and that's not good. So you definitely want an upward trend in your GPA. It will be very helpful and make colleges think that you're mature and you're preparing yourself. So that's good.
At Marbella Guilar 1 wants to know, are summer programs such as the Harvard Pre-College helpful when applying to colleges?
No, they're not. I mean, I have people that have done them and have told me that they found them to be personally beneficial, like they thought it was interesting, which is totally acceptable. I mean, that's fine. Like, you learned something at the course, you found it to be enriching. I think that's great. But I think, like, in terms of paying top colleges for summer programs as like an application thing, that's not usually helpful, because you're just paying for it. Anyone could just pay for it. So it doesn't really help that much. Other people will tell you that it does help a little bit, but I would imagine that it's not that helpful. And I think if you find it to be a useful personal experience, I think that's great. But I'm not telling people to not do it. Like, if you want to learn about creative writing and you want to do it at Harvard and you can get a great professor to teach you creative writing, I think that's awesome. But I wouldn't expect it to like get you accepted into Harvard. You know what I mean?
At Sam Swenson 4 wants to know, what do college emails mean for me, and do I have to reply to them?
Oh, like colleges sending you emails? Yeah, I mean, it would be good to open them and read them. They definitely can tell you if a student opened the email or not. They can tell if you clicked on a link. So, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but colleges do track stuff like that, depending on the college. So, yeah, it would be helpful. And it would be helpful to just educate yourself, like what the college is about, like, what kind of stuff they're emailing out. They're probably emailing out articles and information about the school. Like, I would probably want to read that if I was thinking about paying them $50,000, just learn what you're getting yourself into, what the vibe of the school is. So I would do that for two reasons, for the first reason being like they might know, and then the second reason, just educate yourself. So people always want to know, like, how do I get in by doing all these tricks? And like, I think learning about the process and understanding what college is all about is probably more important than figuring out if opening emails will like get you clout with Harvard. You know what I mean?
Last question. At Siblings FBR wants to know, do you think colleges will still be test optional for class of 2022?
Many will be, but also many probably will switch back. I mean, it really depends. I mean, some of them were test optional before this, so I'm assuming the ones that were test optional before this will continue to be test optional, and many of them will probably keep it, and some probably won't. Like, some have said they're ending it soon. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think also a lot will be figured out in this time. So there's going to be colleges that may find test optional to be really successful for them, and there may be others that find it to be unsuccessful, who we don't really know yet. So I think, like, whether it's totally successful for almost all colleges or totally not will really dictate how it's perceived in the future. So it could become totally universal if it's like the most successful thing of all time, or if some colleges hate it or it doesn't work for them, then it's probably going to go in the other direction. So I think we have to wait to see how the next few years turn out before we know what's going to happen. But I would imagine many will keep it. All right, so that was Sandy's whispering to me. That's the last question. That is the last question. Thank you for the awesome question, guys. We really appreciate it. We're shouting out your usernames now, so we're trying to pronounce them the best that we can, but we're going to be putting them up on the video so you guys can get your shout out. So keep asking awesome questions on all of our social media, and we'll be doing this every 2 weeks and answering your questions. So if you have any specific ones, you could also DM me, and we'll be answering any of them that we get in DM as well. So We really appreciate that, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys at the next Q&A. Peace.